And in just this way, we have a whole system of preparation of the child for life, which always is preparation and never actually gets there. In other words, we have a system of schooling which starts with grades. And we get this little creature into the thing with a kind of, come on, kitty, kitty, kitty. And we get it always preparing for something that's going to happen. So you go into nursery school as preparation for kindergarten. You go into kindergarten as preparation for first grade. And then you go up the grades till you get to high school. And then comes a time when maybe if we can get you fascinated enough with the system, you go to college. And then when you go to college, if you're smart, you get into graduate school and stay a perpetual student and go back to be a professor and just go round and round in the system. But in the ordinary way, they don't encourage quite that. They want you after graduate school or after graduation, commencement as it's called, beginning, to get out into the world with a capital W. And so you've been trained for this and now you've arrived. But when you get out into the world at your first sales meeting, they've got the same thing going again, because they want you to make that quota. And if you do make it, they give you a higher quota. And come along about 45 years of age, maybe you're vice president. And suddenly it dawns on you that you've arrived. With a certain sense of having been cheated, because life feels the same as it always felt. And you are conditioned to be in desperate need of a future. So the final goal that this culture prepares for us is called retirement. When you will be a senior citizen and you will have the wealth and the leisure to do what you've always wanted, but you will at the same time have impotence and false teeth and no energy. So the whole thing from beginning to end is a hoax.
Hi. Today we're going to talk about Alan Watts and the concept that man is a hoax. You're just after hearing an audio of Alan Watts talking about the ridiculousness of life, that we are conditioned to desperately need a future. And I think that's you can check the full audio out. There's a website there where they have a full audio and the transcripts and all that. But that one line is a big thing. We're conditioned to desperately seek a future. So the big point, this is only a small little snippet out of the actual speech, but the big point he's making is the ridiculousness of our society, that we basically present to people, you go to this next level, and this next level, and this next level, and it starts with you being a small kid, and someday you're going to be a big kid. And I like to call this thing and eventually you're going to be a success. Eventually you're going to have a career and be successful and have the, beautiful marriage partner and beautiful, happy family life, and everything's going to be great. And I like to call this the promise. And what I mean by that is that, there is this saying that hope is the mother of mankind, that hope is the mother of invention, hope is the mother of mankind. It's hope that makes us go forward, and also hope that prevents us from being depressed and upset. But also we sell hope. Okay, and obviously parents are going to be hopeful for their kids and do everything they can to help their kids. But apart from that, society is kind of giving a promise to a young person, to a child. And we're promising that young person that everything is going to be good and that all they have to do is play the game. All they have to do is be a good little boy and a good little girl, and all they have to do is do their homework and study hard and maybe play sports and, be a good citizen, and they're going to have a really good future. They're going to be the master of their domain. They are going to be the hero of their story. And what I find very interesting, and I say this from my own experience because I work as a school teacher on a daily basis, is that I see this all through childhood, and then when they hit their kind of mid-teens, around 14 or 15, you'll see them shift from the child brain to more of a teen brain. And from what I can gather with teens, it's kind of like they have an adult intelligence but lack of life experience. That's why they're somewhat emotional and all over the place, because they have, the the mind is starting to work in an adult way, but they don't have life experience. But the interesting thing is the mindset, although a teen or a person in their early 20s might still say they're very mature, they basically think like an adult. So you have child thinking and adult thinking. Around that 14, 15, there's a shift for most people, and they go from being a big baby to being a young adult. We call it adolescence, but really they're like a young adult. They're starting to think differently. And until around that 14 mark or so, they are idealistic and relatively easy to control and work with, and they believe you. And once they hit around that 14, 15 years of age, they'll start questioning everything. And they start developing anxiety. Now, I'm not saying this is universally the case. I know there's individual kids who have anxiety and all sorts of problems. Many kids have anxiety and depression at 7 years of age, for example. I understand that. But I'm just saying the average kid who never had any anxiety, worry, or stress at like 10 years of age, 12 years of age, around 14-ish, 15-ish, they will suddenly enter the world of men, the world of women, the world of mature human beings who are kind of discombobulated and upset and angsty. And why is it that we go from this idealized state, okay? And like I say, to clarify, it's there are people who get depressed and upset as a kid, but I'm just saying this general trend towards being idealistic and suddenly realizing, hey, I'm not the master of my domain. I'm not the hero of my story, and life sucks. That's what I'm talking. Just general, human, I'm upset about things. And that's the adult mindset. The adult mind says, oh shit, life is really hard, tough. And I'm not 100%. And some days I feel like I can do it, but a lot of the time I feel not so good. And the big shift I feel, this is how I interpret it, is that you were given a promise as a small kid. And you're given dreams and ideals. And if you look at child psychology, young kids do look at adults as kind of big authority figures, and even other teenagers. I remember when I went from primary school to secondary school, so we're talking 7th grade, basically around 12 years of age or so. I remember going to secondary school and looking at the sixth week, what we call sixth year in Ireland, and so these would be around 17 years of age. And they were huge. I remember they were like giants compared to me. They're so big and strong. And, I looked up to these guys. And I looked up to teachers. And I looked up to my parents and society in general. And, I do know that society, back when I was a kid and teenager, even young person, we were more idealistic than we are now. I'm more likely to believe authority figures than we are now. But you do hit that kind of mid-teens mark and start realizing that my parents are not perfect, and the school teachers are not always right, and those seniors and super seniors at my school and college are not much different from me. So we're selling everybody on this dream, but the dream works fantastically when you're a kid as a dream. It's like belief in Santa Claus. But then one fine day you wake up and you realize it's not real, and you realize that life isn't what you thought it was. And the moment you shift from this child brain to this adult brain, instead of being in the now and enjoying the moment, life starts becoming this chore. Because now it's like, I have to do well in my 12 standard to get to a good college. I have to do well in college to get a good job. When I get that job, I have to do well in that job so that I can have the things I want, the lifestyle I want. If I want to get married, I need money to impress the person I want to get married with and have that life that we want together. If I want to have kids, we have to have money, and we have to save for a rainy day. We have to save for retirement. Hell, you even have to save to go and when you die that you can bury your body or burn your body or whatever. So it becomes a chore. So this is what I feel he's talking about, is that once we shift from the child mind, which is very easily entertained and absorbed in the present moment, we shift to the stage that, and we stay for the rest of our lives pretty much, of always striving for more, 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 partly because of need, because we don't want to be poor and we don't want to be left out. But also, even if we fulfill all our needs, and we fulfill our wants, we have an irritation and a boredom and we want to go to the next thing. So even if we have that great career, lots of money, and the nice marriage partner, great kids and stuff, we'll take up cycling up mountains or climbing mountains, or we'll take up jumping out of airplanes, or we'll take up yoga. We'll do something. We're not very satisfied in the moment. We're always striving for something more. And this is what he means when he says that, or how I interpret anyway, that man is a hoax, that our happiness is based upon the future. And you can't live in the future. You can only live in the present. So what's the point? So I feel there's a big failing in society, and that the way we are conditioned, as he says, we are conditioned to desperately want the future. So we're continually hoping for something in the future, and it will never come, because the future, we're not living in the future, we're living in the present. Now, I would be a little bit more optimistic than Alan Watts, because where I feel he might fall down a bit is being too critical of all these things, as if it's a scam, it's set up to purposely piss you off. I wouldn't see it that way. The way I see it is society is very complex. Civilization is complex. Human beings are complex. Trying to have a society that will support everybody is complex. And to fulfill your own needs is complex. And that nobody's really out to get you. And that we should be positive about certain things. We should have hopes and dreams and ideals as a good thing to have goals. It's a good thing to have dreams. It's a good thing to want to have a great lifestyle and want to have a good career. And why wouldn't you want to be the hero in your own story? So I think a lot of it is good, and we have to aspire to achieve more. And it's the endless aspiration to achieve more that creates civilization. If nobody's trying to achieve more, it's like in that story Odysseus, when he comes back from the war with Troy, and the men go to the island of the Lotus Eaters, and they all take drugs and they just hang out there, and he has great difficulty getting back. It's like that thing. We do need drive and ambition, but we also need to smell the roses. We need to be in the now to relax and enjoy. And so I think the big failing of human society, and why man is a hoax, is that on one level we're trying to create aspirations which will work for everybody, and on another level we're missing something. All of us are missing something. And this is also a challenge as well. Human beings have something missing in their psyche. The way our mind is set up is not really the way it should be set up. And it's an interesting conundrum when you think about it. And nobody has an exact answer, but at least we can aspire and try to do something about it. Have you ever woken up in the morning and felt far more expansive and kind of tuned in? And then within a few minutes that goes away. What's actually happening is you're in a different level of conscious awareness. And then you enter into this everyday awareness. And when you enter into this everyday awareness, it's a disconnected awareness. It's an awareness that's dominated by the left brain, analytical, judgmental thinking. And one of the big problems we have in society is this tendency to judge everything and everybody and classify everything. It creates structure in society, but it takes us away from the now. When we are in a more intuitive and imaginative state, as in when we're dreaming, for example, or when we fall in love, or when we have wonderful experiences, which is sometimes we do, we're in a wonderful state of being, or we go somewhere and we interact with some people and it's a very wonderful experience. When this happens, we are more expansive. Our conscious awareness is different. We cannot actually be very happy in the conscious awareness that we're in everyday life. The conscious awareness that we're in everyday life, at best, can be fairly contented. Maybe a bit jovial, maybe a bit jokey, maybe a bit somber, maybe a bit philosophical, but it's a state of mind that we require to pay the bills and fill in forms and communicate with other people, like our family members and our work colleagues, and get things done. But it's not the state of mind to really be absorbed in joy. And well, if you look back to when we were kids, we're in a different state of mind. And it's way more similar to the state of mind in a sleep state or a meditative state. So somehow we have to expand from that sleep state or expand from that meditative state. So human beings are divided. And so we're trying to be whole, but we are divided. And it's the big flaw of human society, is that we're all trying to do okay, but we are divided. We are not fulfilled. And in many videos I have here on this channel, I talk a lot about things like repression, fitting into society, and how we're repressing the instinctual side, but it also represses the intuitive and creative side as well. So there's no exact answers to these things. They're very big problems and well worth us looking at from a philosophical perspective and a psychological perspective and a societal perspective. But let's just think of something that maybe we can do about this thing of man being a hoax. Man is a hoax because man is divided from himself or herself. And because of that, we are divided self. We need wholeness in life, but we need to pay the bills. We need to be practical, and we need to be aspirational. One of the challenges we have, of course, that most of us are not the hero in our own life. We feel like we're side actors, we're extras in our own life, that somehow other people are doing better. That's one issue. Another issue is that even if you are a hero in your own life, you're a very successful person who looks up to you, the tendency will be to think, well, that's not really me, it's just an image of me. I'm still not satisfied. So how do you get satisfied? You can only become satisfied by shifting your consciousness on a regular basis. And the only way you're going to do that is through meditation and spirituality, basically, and by expanding your mind into other states of being. You're going to have to do it on a regular basis. If you do it on a regular enough basis, some of it will seep into your everyday life. But we have to understand that as long as society is with us trying to make things happen while we're divided, trying to be whole while divided, it has to be a hoax. So I would kind of argue a little less cynically than Alan Watts, that it's not that people are out to get you or we're in a terrible world and all of that. People are trying to be whole while divided. It's like I'm trying to shake your hand with my left hand when my left hand is tied behind my back. I can't do it. It's not possible. It's like I'm trying to turn to my right side when I'm in a very small, maybe, area and I can't turn my body around. It's like I'm trying to look up when, again, I'm in a very tight space and I can't look up. As long as we're in this state of being, we cannot be fulfilled. And man will be a hoax because we're creating an aspirational person that can never be. So the daily consciousness that you're in the daily life is quite effective at getting things done and even being a success. But to enjoy life and to be fulfilled on a regular basis, we have to stand back from this experience and experience something else. And I would strongly suggest spirituality, meditation. If you do it often enough and you expand those gates of perception, bit by bit, other states of being will come in and you'll have a more expanded vision of reality. The other final thing I would say on a philosophical note is that we have to realize that society is structured and organized, and the people on the top of society, the most successful people, the most powerful people, they want everybody to fit in and get along. And so to some degree they have to buy into the hoax. Like a guy running a factory, if he tells everybody running the factory that you're not really going to fulfill yourself, you're just going to make a wage. Maybe he won't be able to get enough workers. This whole thing of career that is sold to us. Well, if people realize that career is just making money and you shouldn't sacrifice so much because you don't really have a career anyway, you're just making money. You're not really so successful. You're probably not a billionaire or something like that. Again, less people will do it. So to some degree, in a structured society, the people at the upper end of society, the managers and government officials and politicians and powerful people, it kind of in their interest to sell us a lie. I don't mean that they're out to get us. I'm simply saying in a way they can't be too honest. Like a salesman, he's not going to tell you, He's going to tell you enough to sell you the product or service, but he ain't going to go his way to tell you everything that's wrong with the product. So yes, you are being sold a lie. And yes, we do have to change civilization. And that in itself is a big, long philosophical question or series of questions. But for now, I'd say those two things. One is you have to expand your state of consciousness and be able to shift your consciousness when you want to enjoy life. You have to be in the now like a small kid. Like Jesus says, unless you be like little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. You have to shift your consciousness. And second thing, to be philosophical and realize that for everything to go on, we kind of have to be given a lie. But we need to challenge that at this stage in society. We need to start looking more about how can individual people be actualized? How can individual people be happy in a society like this? Because our society, presently the way it's directed, is a very small, tiny percentage of people become famous, a very small, tiny percentage of people become powerful, a very small percentage of people have all the wealth, a very small percentage of people have all the glory, and the rest of us are just getting on with things. So we have to find a way that really does work for everybody, rather than selling everybody a dream and only 0.00001% of those people can actually have that dream. It's never going to happen. You know, how many people can become the president of a country or prime minister of a country or a billionaire or whatever? Very small percentage of people. Or even to become fairly successful, still a small percentage of people, like way less than 1%. So the majority are always incapable of fulfilling those dreams, and therefore they're obviously going to be upset. So we're setting up a society that's obviously going to piss people off. It's obvious. So we have to become more philosophical individually. We have to expand our consciousness on a regular basis to enjoy life. And there is a greater dialogue or discussion which has to take place around how do we fulfill people realistically, because everybody can't be rich or famous or a billionaire or whatever it is. So how can ordinary people be satisfied? What's a realistic dream to sell people? And I think more and more, a lot of people feel their dreams are not being fulfilled. And in many parts of the world, like I'm thinking particularly, for example, where I came from, up from Europe, for example, and also I know this is true in America, the economic peak took place 30, 40 years ago. And so you're not going to be as successful as your granddad or your dad. And that's depressing. So that's a philosophical question we have to look at, an economical question we have to look at, and a sociological question we have to look at. How do we be satisfied? How can we find freedom in an unfree world, as it were? But I just thought it was an interesting point that man is a hoax, that larger society is set up with a bunch of dreams that are not being fulfilled, and that we have to really get away. If you want to be happy, you have to get away from this whole thing that we are conditioned to be desperate for a future, because you can't enjoy the present in the future. You can only enjoy the present in the now. So interesting. Alan Watts, always worth checking out. Some interesting things to think about. I hope you like this video. If you do, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.